Alright, hello everyone and welcome to another episode of our Langrisser mobile series. Now, there is a character that I really wanted to hold off at least until I could get the first star. However, we're running out of funds, which means I would like to do at least these reviews for this year, so that we can all look together at what Ainz All Gone really brings into the game. As a very strong note to anyone who's interested in the game and watching, Ainz is obviously not as strong as he would be in the anime. That would make like a One Punch Man type of hero. So it is on par with other heroes of the similar type. That said, he has some very unique capabilities that can be used in order to trick other opponents or to bring something into the battle that no other character can. With a warning, this character has been deemed not good enough for the meta in general, which means if you invest on it, like I will, it is more of a personal choice and a personal taste rather than because it is a unique unit in a certain aspect. But there are some very cool things that can be pulled off with him, and this is what we are here to analyze today. First of all, it is the first protagonist who is not part of the protagonist faction, and the main reason for this is because all evil protagonists of Langrisser are not part of the protagonist faction either. Right, so they have to be friendly to Matthew, so to speak, in order to be part of his faction. That being said, he is part of Dark, Time, and the very new Reincarnation faction. Reincarnation very soon, like 2 months from now, maybe 3 months from now, we'll be getting the second faction buffer, the first one being Ainz. And Hilda, the faction buffer that is also a tank, is very widely used, so coverage for Ainz will for sure be there. We have Joshua, Angelica, if you go that way, and Yusuke. We have Bose and Licorice, and then we will have, of course, Ares and Hilda, as I was mentioning. Ainz All Gone, in difference to Bosel, you can see the similarities in the dressing anyway, does not have a conversion talent. However, the healthier you are, the more damage you can deal, the more intelligence you have, so it's not really that crazy of a build that's necessary for him. What does he do? Well, it's actually quite simple. He buffs himself, so the more time passes, the more buffs he gains, but he also loses them every turn, which means you will just cycle between different buffs you can take. The buffs are decent, but the best part of them is that they do stack with literally everything else, even if they are the same type of buffs. Damage increase, damage decrease, anything that is a normal buff that you can get stacks with the Overlord buffs. At 6 stars uniquely, he gains 2 buffs every turn. So if you manage to do that for that specific turn, you may want to wait until you get damage up and something else. Alright. Also, as we mentioned, the healthier he is, the more intelligence he gets. He basically has 2 classes similar to other characters of the sort. One mage version, so neutral, non-demon version, and a demon version. The demon carries way too many penalties in order to be used effectively. In fact, anything that is remotely holy will just destroy you. That's always a little bit of a shame. And that's why I'm using him as a mage. Regarding soldiers, he has a very interesting selection. I am personally gonna go for the Spider Demon Elf, and there's a reason behind this. I will explain that very shortly. But in general, the best part is you should not care about the movement type of any of them. You could be using Undead Knights if you somehow could make it work, or any other thing that you want, because he has very unique things. Regarding his equipment, we will go into that later. Before we go there, let's talk a little bit about the skills. He can do both AoE and single target, and in the AoE department he has some very cool things. But let's start with single target first. The first one here is Lightning Strike. It's a cavalry killer, that's easy. We also have a Scythe, very useful because you get to regain your health. As a single pointers, he also has a teleportation. He has in-depth support, so kinda like a Sage's hat, I guess, actually, yeah. And then the one that probably everyone will be using, when forced into battle, so when attacked, has a 30% chance to trigger. If it triggers, damage reduced by 90%. So this could basically turn a ping-pong attack into a 50% attack and almost basically negate the kill attempt. In any situation, this happens when you get into battle attacked by someone else. So it doesn't happen on AoE, it doesn't happen on fixed damage, it doesn't happen on many other things, but this is still very ridiculously strong. Okay, so basically if this triggers, this just negates a kill attempt. Alright, and of course if it's something like a Landius auto attack, it deals basically no damage, and that's amazing. Additionally, he has another single target skill called Reality Slash, and as you can see, I am actually equipping it. He attacks 1.5, like many other attacks, increased crit chance, whatever, but before entering battle, you will attack the enemy first. So this is actually the first skill, and we even talked about this in the preview 3 months ago, or 6 months ago, with Fajar and the people from the wiki. This is the first skill that exists that initiates battle on purpose before the opponent. I guess it's similar, it could be comparable to the talent of Omega and some other talents that could do something similar, like Sakura. But this is quite unique because it means from now on abilities may be created that offer such a modifier, like attack first. And in the case of trying to attack a tank that also retaliates in range, like for example Landius, this could mean that you take 0 damage from attacking into a Landius. If he has weak damage, if your spiders trigger before the combat and then his damage gets reduced, that is 40 hits into the tank before he gets to counterattack. And even if he gets to counterattack, the likely scenario is that all soldiers will be dead for that tank. So you will only take half the damage that the unit can deal. So I am absolutely in love of this, and what's best is the cooldown is only 1. So this is basically a firebolt, if you want to compare it like that, which just can negate someone entirely. This could also allow you, for example, to kill a Zerida that is standing on the field, an Omega, any type of those counterattack archers, Joshua, that would normally decimate a mage before they even, throw the first one. A Hiei that sometimes just destroys your face. You could eventually get a first kill in, and even if you don't, all the troops are dead, and then you take less damage total. That is just too good for me. In the AoE department, one last thing, the teleportation that he has, in case you don't want to use this, reduces damage taken by 20%. So that is still damage reduction. Also, it heals you a little bit, but I don't think that is quite specifically useful compared to just an outright chance to survive. This is like triggering like Bloodline or Aeolus, but 90% instead of 30. That's just crazy. In the AoE department, he has Black Hole with the normal Black Hole effects. There are nothing new there. And then Skyfall. This is a Heaven-sanctioned size AoE. Deals a little bit less damage, but the damage inflicted goes higher the more the opponent can move. So flyers get decimated, cavalry gets decimated. For example, a Landius tank will also take a very, very big hit. And in the case of flyers in general, they also take super effective damage. So that means I think 30% increased attack. I don't even remember the numbers at this point. The super effective is maybe a special thing, right? Because with a bonus when battling cavalry. Hey Creamy, how are you doing? Ah, wait, then that means I don't have this activated. And okay, we are back. There we go. Good. Alright. So, I have mentioned everything about all his other skills. Let's look into the 3C because it is 7 billion skills in one. Alright. So the 3C actually opens a sub-menu whenever you want to use it. And the sub-menu says, choose one of 3 possible spells. So it's called Wish Upon a Star. And depending on which spell you choose, your cooldown or your uses change. If you choose Immortal, It regenerates you to max HP and also increases your maximum HP by 15%. So if you want to make him even more tanky, that is something you can use. You can use this only one time per battle. Fly. Mobility increased by 1, so you don't need to use boots if you want to be a Bozal equivalent. And the unit's movement type becomes flying. This is what we were talking about. It doesn't matter which unit you bring, you can just always become flying. This is almost always the turn 1 ability that you use. And then the final part of it, which is why this spell is so ridiculous, Creation. It's basically a mega black hole. It deals less than black hole damage, that is true. However, if the enemy is in a non-defensive terrain, it dispels 2 buffs and turns them into random debuffs. This could absolutely be silence, this could absolutely be removing guard, it could be almost anything. This is a dispel. And then the cooldown is set only to 3. So in this scenario, Black Hole becomes 3 turns, and you could trick into getting less by using Clock, by using many of the other applications. But in general, this 3C is so versatile, so powering up, that it's impossible not to include in whatever lineup. Another different build for him would be to be using Skyfall and then just have an AoE machine. This is still a very damaging AoE because this 25% gets really high very quickly. Or you could be using Black Hole if you want to just spread misery around. But in general, I am going with Reality Slash because I expect this to work this way. The final part I wanted to talk about him is the possibilities of gear that he has. In the first case, the staff is something that would change depending on what you want to do. If you want to build him for AoE only, you could absolutely use a mythical staff instead. Mythical would be pretty decent. In this particular, I'm using a Red Moon.
Can't clock.
The 3C can't clock? Are we sure about that? Damn, that is super sad for me. I was almost sure that it could clock, no problem. You know what? We can try to force it. But thank you. That's good information because then maybe the enchantment can change. Absolutely. Alright. In any particular case, thank you, Creamy, for the data. I'm using Red Moon. It implies the most versatility possible. Also increases his HP, which then you can lead to more HP by using the 3C. You can increase intelligence as a base thing, and you don't need to choose between your single target or AoE builds. You can actually have a little bit of both. Attenio and Attenio, always recommended. And finally, I'm using a Time Travel Dimensional Jewel, which is going to reduce the cooldown by 1, especially when we use tiny attacks like Reality Slash. It could mean that I can keep on spamming Reality Slash if this keeps triggering. So as far as attackers go, that is ridiculously strong. The caveat of this hero, so I think we have gone through everything. Yeah. The caveat of this hero is that everyone gets him at 3 stars and everyone has to level him all the way the 50 whatever days, 60 days of farming the shards for him, specifically for him. So there is this disadvantage that he's not a known powerhouse by any of the strongest players, and there's so much investment involved in him. No way to skip it, no matter how much you pay into the game, which means it is really a trust issue of upgrading him if that's what you decide. But in my case, I am very happy with the hero. I will be pushing forward, and I will be upgrading him all the way to max. Alright, do we have a tiny random event? Let's go here. We are gonna do some checks. So we have Ainz, we have everyone else. I'm gonna dodge with everyone else so that Ainz can go on. And I'm going to bring the faction battle. Okay. Okay, let's get you... Oh, what did I do? Get you out of the way. You can do faction buff. Alright, try number 1. Creation. Cannot kill anything yet. Alright, the That seems to be the case then. We'll go to the next turn then. It was more effective to attack than to use the AoE. We go to the next turn and cooldown is at 3. Okay, so let's do a different thing. We move this person first, and then we move you. The 3C cannot clock. That is a little bit worse than I wanted. It cannot clock and it cannot do the jewel. That is pretty bad. Let's go back. Poison instead. I guess it must be within the code of sets the cooldown to, because that is very different to what's usually happening here. I am guessing that, you know what, we're gonna try that. I am guessing that Miracle, Sea of Miracles still helps. So I'm gonna check that out. I mean, it makes perfect sense that it just helps. Let's bring you.
Rewind works obvious.
Rewind works as well, yeah, that makes sense. It's just so pretty. I wish it dealt the damage, but it doesn't. Not yet. Okay. Let's get out of the way. Alright, so if clock doesn't work, that's a little bit sad. That is indeed sad. What would I use if clock doesn't work? Full moon makes sense. I think full moon makes sense. Okay, so yeah, Sea of Miracles works, Rewind
Black
works.
hole still can clock.
Black hole can still clock, yes. So everything else but the 3C can't. Okay, that's interesting. I will take this into consideration. Let's see. Let's see. Because in that case, the Dimensional Jewel loses a lot of value. Because if it's just literally to be able to spam this skill, might as well wait one turn. So Bracer then again, once again, and forever, becomes the best thing possible for him. And then I'll probably swap over to Full Moon in order to extract more stats out of everything. And that makes sense for me. Alright, it seems like I've learned something new while trying to do the video of him. And that's amazing. Creamy, thank you very much for the data. I will be right back in 1 minute in order to continue with the event itself. So please hang on and see you soon.